So I don't want to interrupt. We are just talking about Taylor Swift, you bunch of tragics. I am speaking with Jess Munday.
Yeah.
Secretary of Unions Tas. We were just talking about Taylor Swift and the bargaining power that you have with kids because you're a tragic Taylor Swift fan.
I am. I don't know. I wouldn't call myself a tragic.
Oh, so maybe it's just me.
Committed.
I'm too old. You did just say you had a couple of outfits you were trying to decide what to wear.
3 outfits.
Yeah.
That's okay.
And you've got kids and the bargaining power you have, because it's not till February, the ability that you now have to bribe them into being, can we use bribe?
Oh, it's
with the unions?
100% it is what it is. In this circumstance. In other instances in my professional role, of course, I would never.
But you've got it there. If you don't behave, mummy's still going, you may not be.
You may not be, and mummy might make a fortune from the tickets that she bought for you.
We are at the Delegates Conference. You're emceeing it. There's been so many incredible speakers, and we've got a lot of those that we're going to play back over the next week. But you came to Tassie when you were 10 days old, is that right?
That's right.
And you live in Kingston?
Blackman's Bay, bit close.
Love it. But you lied when you were 13 to get a job.
I did.
In a bakery. I started work when I was 13 as a waitress. Tell me about that.
I just wanted to earn some money. And so I applied for a job in a bakery in North Hobart and said I was 16. And they didn't make me prove that, and they believed me, and that was my first paid job.
$4, I think I used to get $4 an hour back in the day.
It would have been something not much more than that.
Where's your passion come from?
I come from a union family,
Yeah.
I think. So my dad was one of 7 children, and he had 6 sisters. My grandfather is a life member of what is now the CFMEU manufacturing division, but was the Timber Workers Union. So he worked in St Helens as, doing work in forestry. So, and my aunts are all strong unionists. My aunt worked in the St Helens District Hospital for 50 years and was a union member of the nursing union the entire time. So one of the things, we talked about unions at home, and I was just told, when you get a job, you join a union, and that's the first thing I did.
You've been doing this now for a long time. What are some of I know that this conference is about passion equals power. What would you like to see happen over the next 12 months within Unions Tas?
It's such a big question.
Yeah. I know there's a lot.
Yeah, there is a lot. And I think, we're in a really difficult situation for working people, It is obviously people who are vulnerable, people whose incomes are low, are struggling the most. But we can see that across the board that people's living costs and wages aren't keeping up. So we have an opportunity working with the new federal Labor government to pass what we believe is really essential industrial relations law reforms that will give workers the ability to bargain for a better share, to get a more secure job, to make sure they get their wages in their pocket, and that will directly help with those cost of living pressures that we're facing. And from a Tasmanian perspective, we've always got an eye on the fact that we are the lowest paid workers in the country, and we have a high proportion of workers who are on awards or are not covered by union agreements and therefore are not receiving good rates of pay. So I think this is a real opportunity. While the community's focused on skyrocketing corporate profits and how well some big businesses and executives are doing versus how well, regular people are doing, for us to really work with our members and with people who aren't yet members of unions to say, hey, this is what we can do if we do it together.
Because there's no doubt there's a lot of people hurting and are struggling. And one of the things I've lived in Tassie my whole life, but one of the things is that it used to be the pay was never on par, but then buying a property was cheaper. We had all these concessions, I guess. It's not like that anymore. We're now one of the most expensive cities to live in Australia.
Yep. It's really funny when I talk to friends and colleagues interstate, and I'm like, no, you do realise that Hobart rents are the most expensive rents in the country when you compare them to what we are actually paid. So this notion that it's so much cheaper to live here, or similarly, it's the lifestyle, it's the lifestyle that you pay for here. Oh, it's a wonderful lifestyle when you can't put a roof over your head and there's no public transport and, access to a hospital is difficult and your local public school is underfunded. I think we really are seeing in Tasmania in particular the result of 10 years of also having a state Liberal government that hasn't invested in those things. And we're seeing it manifest in different ways in our community. Like a lot of workers these days are reporting to us, particularly in hospitality and other front-facing type of roles, that they're seeing an increase in aggression and other, antisocial behaviour. And I think we see that across our community when people are struggling.
One of the keynote speakers was Dr. John Falzone, and we have a chat with him coming up. He called homelessness almost a spectator sport now.
Yeah, it's really confronting to listen to John and him framing the problem as the system working entirely as it was intended. Which does shut people out of access. And, we know in Tasmania, for example, our housing wait lists are so long. And I remember, perhaps this was a luxury, but it shouldn't be. I remember when I was growing up in Hobart, you could identify the one or two people who were homeless. We knew them, we sort of knew their names even. And now there's someone homeless on almost every corner of our CBD every day. It's in your face, and we all know someone who is struggling to find a place. We all see our social media feeds full of people begging, I do anyway, in local community groups and others, for accommodation because they're about to lose out because their property is going to be turned into an Airbnb or the rental increase is so high. So there's multiple levels that needs to be tackled on, I think.
And you go head to head with politicians, bosses. What is that like?
And I used to do a lot of individual advocacy. So, particularly around safety and workers' compensation, because that's a particular skill and passion area of mine. And, it is incredibly tough, but it is also incredibly gratifying as well. There are times, I have lots of fond memories, of just knowing, I think, that if you weren't there, not you personally necessarily, but the union.
The collective you.
Yeah.
Because that's what I'm finding here. There's a lot of, I've never been one of these, there's a lot of camaraderie. There's a lot of people that feel supported that perhaps otherwise wouldn't.
That wouldn't, no. And that's sort of our big thing, right? If you're in a workplace, it is pretty confronting and isolating to raise an issue on your own. It's also, like any theory of power will tell you, that's not going to be probably the most effective. So it's having, that ability to make positive change and correct wrongs for people. And no one wants to believe that they're going to be treated poorly at work or they're going to be injured or they're not going to be paid properly. But the reality is it happens more often than people would like to admit.
And there's that fear of speaking up. I can even say from my own experience.
Yep. And, it's interesting. People often say, but will I be in trouble for speaking up, as a union delegate? And usually in the workplace, if you're in a workplace where you're in trouble for speaking up, it doesn't matter whether you're a union member or not. That's something about that workplace that wants to keep people quiet, and that's a problem. And I think generally people are probably conflict averse and they just want to go to work and do their job. It's some of the things that people raise with us, they're not things that are going to be fixed by individuals either. So, whilst you might be experiencing, crushing workload or unfair, key performance indicators or other things, chances are if that's happening to you, it's happening to other people as well. So you don't actually fix the problem you might get some temporary reprieve for you, but you don't actually fix the problem for the workplace. And that's where unions are really good at doing that stuff.
So what would your advice be to anyone out there that is struggling with any of those things?
It's going to sound very predictable, but my number one piece of advice is join your union to everyone. If you've got a boss, you need a union. So if you are not running the show, and most people aren't, you need a union. And they're the people, and it might be a delegate, it might be someone that's paid by the union office, but they'll be able to help you make a plan on what it is that you want to deal with.
Jess Munday, thank you so much for chatting with us. We really appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing what you do over the next 12 to 24 months.
Thank you.